Awesome. Welcome, everyone. Happy Friday, everyone. We are here for our Friday Health Talk with the Far South Chicago Coalition. We're excited to be here. We have a wonderful discussion as usual and some phenomenal guests. Before we go any further, I'm going to go ahead and show us a short video. And so please, as we're watching the video, if you know someone learn about healthy eating and needs to learn about how to live a healthy lifestyle, today is the day. This is the place you want to be. And so we're going to learn a little about that. I'm going to show you a short little video clip here, and then we're going to turn over to our producer and host here, Dr. Roberson, who's going to give us some wonderful information. So sit back, relax, enjoy. Do not go anywhere, folks. It is a wild and crazy holiday weekend. Stay with us. Hang out so that you can actually, even over this weekend, enjoy the benefits of healthy living and healthy eating. All right, here we go, and we will turn it over to Dr. Roberson as soon as our video is over.
And I had a wise man tell me, during this pandemic,
about it is bitter or better. And I've heard a lot about this COVID-15, and your book Fast Burn. You just talk about dealing with that. Let's talk about this COVID-15 and how to deal with
that. First of all, I understand why people gain a lot of weight during COVID. This has been for all of us, and it's been very difficult. On my Instagram, I try to put up little things people can do around the house to try to combat the tendencies you're developing during COVID. Little workouts, 7-minute workouts. I mean, you work out, even just doing a 7 or 10-minute workout twice a day, a little bit in the morning, a little bit at night. No machines, full body workouts. Those things help. Here's the other part. This is one of the few times in our lifetime that most of us are going to be home for a long period of time, which means this is the best time to control your food environment. So what you put in your cabinets, in refrigerator, you're in control. So if you shouldn't have it, don't bring it into your house. They'll say, well, I had a thing for this, and they load up their cabinet. Well, what do you think you're going to do? You're going to go get it when you're stressed out or it's late at night, The other thing you mentioned, you actually were talking about intermittent fasting, by the way, when you said don't eat a certain time before going to bed. You're really doing a form of what's called intermittent fasting. And so in my book, I have some intermittent fasting. The average weight loss, by the way, is 15 to 17 pounds in 9 weeks. That's a lot of weight. But here's the deal. People are losing that weight, but they're doing it by not going hungry. 3 snacks, 3 meals a day, working out an hour a day. It's all about doing things in moderation that's approachable and accessible to everybody.
So when you say 3 meals, is that 3 full meals or is that 3?
Yeah, so intermittent fasting, you're going to choose a time of the day called your feeding window where you're using snacks, and then you're going to choose a time fasting window. So imagine this. Take 24 hours, and let's say you do 12-12. That means you're going to eat 12 hours and fast for 12 hours. Well, that's easy. Let's say you start eating at 8 o'clock in the morning. You'll eat all your meals and snacks from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. That's 12 hours. That's a 12-hour feeding window. Then from 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. you fast. No solid food, but you drink liquids as long as it doesn't exceed 50 calories. That's intermittent fasting right there.
That's clean. So tell me what's the versus bad fat?
By the way, we need fat, just so you know that. Fat is not all bad. We actually need fat. Fat insulates us, it protects us. Our membranes and our cells, they need fat. So when people, fat is the enemy. No, fat's not the enemy. The bad fats are the enemy. So things like trans fats, we use T-A-N-S, trans fats. Never eat anything that says trans fat on the label. In fact, now companies are saying 0 trans fats, let you know it's not in there.
Tell me what product, one product or meal that will have trans fat in it. So
processed cookies. And you go in there and buy the package of cookies or cupcakes or danishes. They all have trans fats in them. Their name, Jeezy, for trans fats, by the way, is something called hydrogenated oils, or it's called polyhydrogenated oil. And that's the manufacturer's trick for not having to put trans fat. All this, they trick you because that's a big word, hydrogenated oil. You don't know what that is. It's a trans fat. So pastries and cookies and stuff, those things typically have it. The other thing I want to say is this. What people have to understand is good fats are the unsaturated fats, the monounsaturated fats, the polyunsaturated fats. So unsaturated good, saturated bad. And in my book, I give you all different types of examples of where to get good fats and what are the bad fats to avoid. But it's not as hard as people think.
Right.
Good afternoon and happy Friday, everyone. I'm Dr. Tanya Roberson, the chair of the Far South Chicago Coalition's Health and Mental Wellness Committee, and your host for our Friday Health Talk of the Week. The Far South Chicago Coalition is comprised of caring community leaders, business owners, and engaged residents working together to make a change and to create a thriving community through our quality of life plan. We are one band, one sound, and we deserve the best. Thank you for joining our show today entitled Reemerging from the Pandemic and Healthy Eating. Living through these times of mass uncertainty, all of our lives and all of our lifestyles were disrupted. And it was easy to fall into unhealthy habits, and especially when it comes to eating. Because let's face it, we are all now spending a lot more time at home than we ever have before, and it has been made easy to turn to comfort food while you stay on a computer, on Zoom calls, and on the couch binging for another one of our favorite TV shows, because food is a pacifier. Now, while this may be totally okay to do, you still want to try to make the healthiest choices you possibly can when it comes to getting or eating the best foods and the most healthiest foods, and so you can have an eating habit in order to keep your immune system in the best shape possible. So, with no further ado, I'll turn it back over to our moderator, Mr. Ted Williams III, who will introduce our guest.
Thank you so much, Dr. Roberson, and welcome once again, everyone. Please like and share the Far South Chicago Coalition's page and let somebody know. This is life-changing information, ladies and gentlemen, and so we need to know. I want to introduce our wonderful, wonderful guest today, who I'm very excited to talk to. Dr. Devin Fiorino is an emergency medicine resident at the University of Chicago. She's from a rural New Jersey town in central New Jersey, as I just learned, and I actually was just there a couple of days ago where she was. She attended Yale as her undergrad and studied poli-sci and attended the University of Virginia for medical school, and has been here at the University of Chicago working in the emergency department and trauma unit. And we are so happy to have her here. Thank you so much, Dr. Fiorino. And also, we have Professor Temple Hempfield, who is a professor of English and communications at the City College of Chicago. She is a multimedia-based journalist and a PR representative. She also, in the health and wellness space, is a health and wellness advocate who's working on a book about mental health and wellness living. And during the pandemic, she got certified to do yoga, and she's a vegetarian and part vegan, which I think is actually very cool. So please give a warm welcome to our wonderful, wonderful guest. Dr. Roberson, let me know in the chat if you'd like to hang out with us, or you let me know, whatever you want to do. It's your world, Dr. Roberson. So you just let me know. So anyway, ladies, I'm so happy to have you all here, and I'm grateful. So COVID-15, that's a real thing. Now I'm gonna go ahead and keep this real, because I like to just have a very informal. It's Friday afternoon. People have been stressed all week. I try not to be too stuffy. So here's the deal. Me, like everybody, sat around for 2 years in the house trying to, work from. I teach political science, by the way, which I didn't mention. So I'm a political science. So that's what I teach for a living. And so I've got all my classes. I'm in my basement studio, which I love and built. But I realized, I just would probably eat much more than I would if I were at the office, because I'm walking past the kitchen and I'm seeing these things, and my wife and my kids are cooking stuff, and I'm just eating. And I do work out, but I just found myself eating so much more in this space. And I just want to talk to you. Start with Dr. Fiorino. Can you talk to us about how common this was? I've got some data around this in a second, but I want to hear from you first. How common was it that people would pick up weight during this time that we were all kind of locked in?
I think it was pretty common that people would, gain some weight while they were at home. I think it depended on a few factors. Some people who felt really isolated and kind of upset would turn to food for comfort. Some people actually took the other route and used the pandemic as a time to develop some hobbies around fitness that they hadn't had before. There was a whole slate of at-home workouts that people were doing. So I think it just depended on how you were feeling and how which direction you went.
Fantastic. And I would imagine that in your work, you're probably seeing a lot of food and health related issues among your patients. Can you speak to that for a second as well?
Yeah, so I think the thing that people don't really understand is that the choices that you make now will have effects for decades. So the type of things that I see in the emergency department that are related to eating are, heart attacks, strokes, diabetes, and those are conditions that obviously can be devastating, but that are caused by habits over a lifetime. So that's why it's important to really understand that the choices that you make every day build your future.
Fantastic. Professor Hempfield, so you are a health and wellness advocate. I know that you had started a student initiative in the city colleges around health and wellness. Why is this so important to you? Why is this work so important to you?
Yes. Thanks for having me on, first of all. So thank you for that. So in 2004/5, I watched my father transition. He was diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer. And I, as a result, I made the decision then. I knew I was about to start graduate school soon. And I just said after grad school, I would make sure that I would try to have a healthy diet and exercise. And I would just try to live a healthy life because from what I've researched and learned, that our diets and our just overall health and smoking and drinking, those are all factors that can weigh heavily in terms of being diagnosed with colon cancer. And I know our doctor can talk more about that. But as a result, in general, what I've learned is that anytime a primary parent has a form of cancer, then the children need to be tested 10 years prior to the onset of or the diagnosis. So at age 40, I began, or 41, I started getting colonoscopies and just really trying to be healthier. So I saw that. So that was really the impetus behind me wanting to be healthier. And then yoga also helped my mental state. And so I made a decision in my 30s to one day become yoga certified. And during the pandemic, through Core Power Yoga, I was able to become certified. So thanks to Core Power, I was able to, I received a scholarship. And it was for people of color. It was to promote more instructors who are people of color. And so I was able to, so yes, so
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Let me throw out a little data because all of us here are work in these academic spaces, and I think data is very important because I think it gives us context, and I want you all to comment on this. So, a couple of different studies that I'm aware of. One basically had about 4,000 individuals around this question of weight gain with the pandemic. 48% of people gained weight. 34% of people remained the same. 18% of people lost weight. Those who were already sort of struggling with obesity, who were overweight, were more likely to gain weight during the pandemic than those who were not. So 65% of those who were overweight gained weight, 58% of those who were of normal weight, and 40% of those who were underweight. And so, and what we also recognized through the study was that weight gain was statistically significantly higher in those with anxiety, 53% depression, or symptoms of both. And so, Dr. Fiorillo, can you talk a little about the link between how we eat, depression, anxiety, and our health?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we do know that, just like you were saying, people with anxiety and depression can struggle with healthy eating, which is especially common here. You know, we have to understand that this is a problem in the United States and it's not a problem everywhere else around the world. Sometimes it's chicken or the egg, especially in obese people. So sometimes obesity itself can lead to anxiety and depression. And we do have a lot of data showing us that, you know, most people in the United States have a bias against obese people, or people who are overweight generally. So when you're already obese, you can feel that bias against you and develop anxiety or depression. And other people who have anxiety and depression and are not obese can then struggle with healthy eating, causing them to become obese, you know, just furthering their problems with their mental health. You know, food and healthy eating is also dependent on your ability to care for yourself. So, you know, we've in the pandemic, I think we've really started talking about self-care as a major issue that we all need to invest in. So it can be really difficult to choose a healthy foods that may need you to go out of your way in some circumstances, when you're anxious or depressed.
Yeah, that's very, very difficult. What have you found, Professor Hempfield, in your work in terms of educating the community? Do you find it to be difficult for people to change the way that they eat or live, or do you find that, you know, with your students and other folks in the community that you've seen some real progress in that area?
Mhm. Definitely. So I always say it's just a lot of people need to know um, economical ways to eat healthy. I think a lot of people just assume that we have to shop at Whole Foods. I shop at Walmart. A lot of the things that I buy, my vegetarian foods and vegan foods, I can now find at Walmart, at least one of the ones on the south side of Chicago on 47th Street. Um, and my veggies, I go to different stores. But I'll tell you, so I think a lot of times the barrier, a major barrier is cost. People assume that we can't afford to eat healthy. But I always say you can buy one or two apples and spend less than if you buy a candy bar nowadays, right? So it's really just being mindful of what really are we spending on snacks.
Okay, but let me use the apple candy bar example because
Okay.
once again, I like to keep things real for our audience.
Okay.
So I want to talk about caloric intake and the feelings of being full. And I would imagine that for many people, they go, well, I could buy an apple for cheaper, potentially, but I'm not going to feel as full as if I get that candy bar. I remember when I was in grad school, I went to U of C, and I used to, you know, U of C is, as both of you know very well, you're in Hyde Park, but then, you know, the other part of the community is very, very close. And so I can get in and get all kinds of fried chicken and things like that that I would get on the South Side and then the traditional South Side, Harold's chicken and that sort of thing. And I would do that in grad school. I don't eat it anymore, by the way, but I would. And I would remember when I didn't have a lot of money and I would go, well, shoot, I could spend $6 and get a half white with, you know, multiple pieces of chicken and fries and whatever. And I go to Whole Foods, which there wasn't Whole Foods back then and whatever at that point, but what do I get for $6 at Whole Foods? A
It
piece
was
of kale. And if I try to get a salad there, which I've done, I do this all the time, even now, I'm probably going to spend $10 on a salad and still not feel as full as I would off of that food.
well,
That's an issue.
So right out of grad school, I was freelancing. My budget was super tight. If I barely had a budget, and I would go to a local. I lived in Rogers Park at the time, which is on the north side, and I would go to a local grocery store and buy tons of veggies. I would make stir fry, and I literally sometimes would just have $5, and I would just buy a whole bunch of veggies. So I'm going to counter that with I'm not, saying go to Whole Foods because you might spend your whole paycheck there, the saying. But I lived the whole right out of grad school type budget. And I waited until I was done with grad school to focus on my diet. I just didn't want the extra stress of trying to figure out my diet while in graduate school. But yeah, so I just say that to say, and there was a Harold's Chicken right by Columbia, which is where I went for grad school. So I was at Harold's. But
yes, we are not anti-Harold's. We are only anti-Harold's over the age of 25. How about that?
I have to admit, I mean, there are
Maybe
days, you're talking about being transparent. There are times when I still think about chicken, and I know my vegans are going to talk about me.
Temple, that mild sauce is addictive. It's like they put some kind of
I
drug
don't
in
know
it. Like,
what's in there,
but that happens. You know, these places, these rib plate. I mean, it's full. You know, so it's a big deal. It is really difficult, right? So, Dr. Fiorina, I want you to talk about, because, like you said, these were lifestyles. There's not the stuff your patients are dealing with is not, oh, they ate poorly for a week or 2 months. I mean, this is what they have been doing, right? Diabetes, heart disease, that sort of thing. So how effective have you been in the space of helping your patients to do a little better in terms of taking care of themselves?
Yeah, well, in the emergency department, I don't get to see, the longevity or the of my patients' choices. Hopefully, I don't see you again in the emergency department, so I hope that you're doing well. But we do have conversations about how people can make choices, and just kind of like you were talking about, you want to make sure that whatever choices you make can be a sustainable part of your lifestyle. So you don't really want to think about your diet in terms of restriction. You want to think about your diet in terms of what you can add to it. So you want to think about, what makes me feel good when I'm eating, what makes my body feel good. I don't want to feel bloated afterwards. I don't want to feel greasy afterwards. And you want to eat like that as often as you can, maybe 90% of the time. And then if you go for Harold's during the week, once a week, even once a month, whatever makes you feel good, then it's okay if 90% of your diet is based on vegetables or things that make you feel good in that sense. So I always talk to my patients coming from that perspective, which I think is more effective to them. So hopefully at least, they've added a vegetable per day, a serving per day, and that would make me pretty happy.
Okay. So you heard it here, folks. It's 90-10. It's not 90% whatever you want to eat. If you eat 10% vegetables, you'll be okay. That's not what she's talking about. She's saying 90% eat well, right? Fruits and vegetables and lean meats and maybe not as much meat. And we'll talk about the vegan, vegetarian lifestyle. We'll talk about intermittent fasting, that sort of thing as well. Maybe that. And then 10% you kind of, eat what you want, which I like as a model. I don't think I'm at 90-10. I'm probably at like 70-30, but we press on. And I think that's the thing, as you said, people have to continue to, work and do things that are manageable and have goals that are attainable. Otherwise they get frustrated. So let's talk about meat. Professor Hempfield, you mentioned in your introduction, I mentioned in your written introduction, that you've adopted a vegetarian lifestyle. Why is that?
Right. So with the colon cancer being in my history now, with my primary parent having died from colon cancer, it is something that I've had 2 colonoscopies starting in my early 40s. And I am a bit fearful sometimes, even with a healthier than not diet. It's just, to be truthful, it's my father, had colon cancer. And so I do my best to just, I just want to be healthier. I want to feel better as well. And so I wish my dad, would be here to talk to and all that. And so I want other people to have beyond just colon cancer. I just want people to realize that, or remember that we have one life to live. And so what we put in our bodies, it matters. We can have all the degrees in the world. And, I tell my students this all the time. We can have all the degrees in the world, but if we don't have our health, our existence is going to be negatively impacted. And so every semester I have my students write a paper about health and wellness. They get to choose usually their topic. Often it's diabetes, it's autism, it's whatever, schizophrenia, just different things. And I have them delve into those topics and think about them. And even though I'm a communications professor, I still try to incorporate health and wellness into my classroom environments.
Yeah, wonderful.
May I say something about the apple, though? When you said apple sounds better, so add a little peanut butter. Just don't add too much peanut butter. right? So it's and peanut butter, but we can overdo it and get all those calories if we put too much peanut butter on our apples. But that can help with the taste of apples and fruit. Spread some avocado on some crackers. You can pay a reasonable price for avocados if you don't go to Whole Foods, maybe. Uh, so there are ways to make our snacks even better. But even with that, I really want to stress, don't overload your snacks with the added things such as peanut butter and granola. People add a lot of granola to their smoothies. Not great. There's so many calories depending on what kind of granola you have. I get toasted coconut granola. It's so many calories, so I just put like a little bit once or twice a week in my smoothies.
Interesting.
There's a debate, and this is the last thing I'll say. There's a debate about smoothies even. I have friends who are heavily into health, and they...
Oh, wait a second. Don't you... Whoa. Wait a second. No, what you not going to do on this show is talk about how smoothies are bad for you. I'm not... Watch, look at this.
People who believe that, they have stopped doing smoothies. I'm not that girl, but I'll tell you what I have done. I don't add a lot of granola. I try to keep it simple. So I try, even like almond milk. I mean, I try to add water and not just have apple juice and all that. So, and that's where it gets tricky. We say, oh, we want to eat healthy foods and drink smoothies, but then you find out you can't add granola and you can't,
Okay. All right. So what is the? I hate to even ask this. There is a school of thought that smoothies are bad for you. Is it because of the added things like granola? Is that all it is?
Because of the way the veggies when we are in the blenders and in the NutriBullets, we are processing our fruit. We're breaking them down and we're taking a lot of the nutrients out. I have a friend right now. I don't know. She's following a pastor in Atlanta who's super popular. I don't know if you've heard about this pastor. So he has a 40-day, I think, cleanse or something. People are following him. So.
Okay. All right. Listen. The opinions of our guests are not the opinions of the Far South Chicago Coalition. I want to say that, okay? You go home, you go eat, you drink your smoothies, people, okay? And you enjoy your smoothies, okay? All right. Okay. So, Dr. Fiorita, I want to talk. So you started off in studying politics, which is my field, which I'm interested in. But then you moved into medicine. And what I realized, though, is that there is an interconnection between the two disciplines because many of the issues that we're talking about health-wise have a political context and a sociological context. I'd like for you to speak about that, particularly, from a public health perspective, and what are some of the disparities and things like that that you're seeing that impact the health of your patients?
Yeah, so that's exactly right. That's why I majored in political science, because I knew I always wanted to be a doctor. But I feel like if you don't understand the systems in which you're living and operating, and your patients are living and operating, then you can't really be effective. So some of the things that have made a huge impact on my patients are access to good food. So for example, the South Side didn't really have that many food options for a while until that Walmart went in, until the Jewel Osco went in a few years ago. There's really not that many places that you could access vegetables. The other issue, especially in the United States, is access to insurance, which we still don't have a real solution for. So, when you look at Chicago's zip codes and life expectancies, you can see the disparity between the South and the North, and I do feel that a lot of that has to do with access to healthcare, specifically because of insurance. If you can't pay for the doctor, you're not going to go to the doctor and find out that you have high blood pressure or diabetes, or the things that are going to cause heart attacks and strokes. So those are the major barriers to care. Fortunately, at least, we have a little bit of better access to food now at this point. So the things that you can control, you should try to control for your health. So that's why food is so important.
Fantastic. So for both of you, what would you say to someone? Because this is a conversation I have often with people. A lot of times food is, there's obviously these anthropological studies about culture and what food means
culturally. And so you have Thanksgiving and you have these extremely high calorie meals, but that's just kind of what always has happened. And that's what grandma did and auntie and Christmas, you bake cookies and you eat, a bunch of those cookies and you sit around and you watch movies and things like that. And so much of what we do in terms of eating is cultural, right? And I do think the conversation in the pandemic around just being around and dealing with the stress of this and kind of just binge watching and eating, right? How do you help people to get out of the cultural habit of unhealthy eating?
So one of the things I do is I have been teaching myself how to make vegan soul food. And so around the holiday time, I do a mostly vegan cornbread dressing, like stuffing. The only thing that's almost everything, including I make the vegan cornbread. There's only one thing, the broth, so far that is vegetarian. Everything else is vegan. My sweet potatoes, like when I do the yams, I use almond milk, I use vegan butter. So I'm just teaching myself still, I want to have my comfort foods. My people are from Mississippi and the South. So I grew up eating, a lot of just soul food. But again, I just am teaching myself how to alter my cooking around the holidays. And most people who taste my food, a lot of the foods that I make, you can't tell that they're vegan. And this is like Thanksgiving and Christmas.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
These holidays. So yeah, I think, and I love it.
Yeah, the other thing is that you don't always have to change your, like your grandma's recipes or the big holidays. You can still do those things. It's going back to the 90-10. It's more so the everyday thing. So, for example, if you have a family dinner every single night and it's a part of your family to kind of push seconds and thirds on your grandchildren, just like my grandma did for me, those are the types of things that you can change that you don't have to do. Or if you just want to change one dish and start off really slow, it's just whatever changes that you can make that are going to be sustainable. So you don't have to go full force at one time. You can kind of take some baby steps to get there.
I love that second or third helping grandmother comment, because I certainly experienced that. It's almost like you offend them if you don't want, if you don't take more. It's like, eat more, I don't want any more. Eat some more, I don't want any more. It's like, okay, fine, I'll eat some more. And I guess that is around all. So many of our families' experiences have been like that. So, yeah.
I know. I think in the Hispanic culture, I think the word is gordito. Babies are encouraged, like the healthier, the chunkier a baby, that's considered a good thing. You've heard of that too, doctor? So yeah, so gordito. And so I know with Latinx folks, they often will suffer from diabetes, as is the case with a lot of Black folks sometimes. So I think
yeah.
I'm not even going to talk about hips and curves and what we like and what have you, in terms of that messaging as well.
Yeah. Do you guys realize the average weight gain? So about 40, I think that's just 40, a little over 40% of folks gain weight during the pandemic. The average weight gain was 29 pounds. That's crazy. 29 pounds, right? And so, I mean, maybe it's not the COVID-15, ain't the COVID-19, but the COVID-29, right? And so what would you tell people who want to get back going again, right? I remember personally how, I kept working. I mean, I kept running and biking and things like that, but it wasn't the same because I wasn't getting the same level of just normal activity that I'd be if I were walking around the office or walking here, and then also going to the gym. But I did keep that up, and I managed to get through. I'm gonna be real vulnerable here. It's like, sometimes you get vulnerable on these shows. I'm not getting as vulnerable as some of our celebrities do. Red Table Talk. But I'm not gonna get that. Like, where'd that come from? I won't get that vulnerable. But what I will say is that I did pick up. I think I picked up like 6 pounds, maybe something like that, or whatever. I was so mad because I was doing so well, right? And then, I've got an aunt who's a doctor. She's like, oh, don't worry about the scale. Just worry about how you feel and how you eat and stuff. I'm like, that's good. Yeah, and I do that as well. I played football, so I try to stay active. But I can tell you that when the gyms reopened, I didn't want to go at first, as many people didn't. And eventually I did. And I've really actually enjoyed being back in the gym. I've been back in the gym since July. And yeah, it has been such a difficult sort of process going back. I built this whole gym in my basement, and it was good to get back out the house, right? And so what would you tell people who want to get back going again? How do you re-engage in this space? Because it can be very, I would imagine, frustrating for people as well.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, I worked out this morning and I take my Lysol with me. I spray down like with a big Lysol can, spraying down the treadmill and the weights and what have you. So I still, I don't wear a mask inside the gym that I go to, but I do spray down things. And so for me, I'm still taking some precautions with, and I know there are wipes that are available as well. But again, I just bring my own Lysol. And, you know, especially people, a lot of folks were depressed during the pandemic and maybe they're still suffering. Teens, there are tons of stories out about how teens have mentally taken a hit during the pandemic and now. And I think when you're depressed, you go inward. And so then you're lethargic sometimes or often, and you don't want to get up and move. So everybody's telling you to move, get some exercise. But when you're going through a depression bout, it's not as easy as it sounds. So I just think I would suggest if you're in the middle of a bout, be it 2 weeks or longer, just force yourself to get up and move and walk. I always say you don't have to belong to a gym to get exercise. If your community is not safe, sometimes, you know, the Metro right now is $2. I believe it's $2, and it's going to continue to be $2 for a while. Go down, parts of downtown, I guess, to walk. But, you know, just basically find somewhere that's safe. That's a whole other.
Don't make me get in my political message. Downtown is just fine. We have a few situations that have occurred in our city, and they get a lot of press in those areas. And so not that I work for the mayor's office or anything like that, but I feel very, very strongly about that. So I do want to ask real quick. So I want to ask, I got a couple comments in the comment section I want to answer in a second here, but Dr. Fiorina, I want you to talk about just for a moment, once again, kind of this, you know, this ER world. And if you could get people, I mean, obviously you're dealing with folks once things have already happened to them. But what in an ideal world, what would you have to tell people before? Let's just say this is a movie and you could go back 5 hours before someone comes to you, right? And you could have a conversation with them. Heart attacks, I mean, all this. What would you say to folks?
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, if I could go back 5 hours, for most of our patients, I would tell them to come in when they first thought of coming in for those really concerning symptoms. So, you know, I've had a bunch of patients who have had the facial droop and the facial numbness, and they can't move their arm, or they're talking kind of funny, and they waited a whole day when those are very clear signs of a stroke. And a stroke specifically, you know, you only have a few hours before, and when I can do something, and after those few hours I can't do anything for you. You're just kind of on your own. Same thing with heart attacks. So I've had patients who are having chest pain and they're sweaty and they can't walk and they just wait too long, and I can't do anything for you. So for those types of symptoms, I would tell you to come in sooner, pretty much right when you think of it. And for other types of symptoms, you know, I think a lot of the patients who come to University of Chicago, unfortunately, our waiting times are horrible. Our waiting times are so long because of the need in our community. But I still want you to come and be seen and triage, because then at least someone will lay eyes on you and can tell you if you need to be seen within the, you know, that 3 hour period that I have.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. We've got a comment here that says one of our FSCC members, Sadiq Muhammad, who's been a guest on this show a couple of times, he's a trainer, and he's a personal trainer for the mayor of Dalton, and they've both been on a few times and talked about their training boot camps, things like that. And Sadiq is Sadiq. I don't know what I got to be careful how I say this, because you're careful what you say, but I'm not going to say what I want to say. I'll tell you all after the show is over what I would say, but I do have a filter. But Sadiq is a little rough around the edges. I was going to compare him to some other commentators out there, but I won't. But Sadiq kind of keeps it real on the health and wellness tip. And so he says some stuff kind of harsh. So one of his phrases, and was brought up in our comments, he says that people always say that diabetes runs in your family. And Sadiq's comment to that, he goes, no one in your family runs, that's why you have diabetes. It's like, oh no. It's like, what does your guest think about that statement? That's the comment, by the way. That's not me. But I think what he's trying, well, I'll let you all respond to the comment.
Yeah.
Well, a little rough, but that's the comment. So
the comment was nobody runs, that's why we have diabetes.
Yeah, rather than diabetes runs in your family. Nobody runs, that's why your family has diabetes.
Well, I run, and my mom, who's well, I'm not gonna, but let's just say, people in my family, they have challenges with diabetes and pre-diabetes, and so I do know that certain folks walking. So if we don't run, can we just walk? Right? Walking is great to help, and I'm sure the doctor can agree. Like walking. So everyone, especially as we age, sometimes our knees become not so great. But walking, I think if you walk long enough, if you walk regularly, I think that's a great alternative. But exercising in general for diabetes and a lot of these are health concerns.
Yeah, so diabetes is, there is a large genetic component. So even if you're, let's say that your dad is unhealthy, but you're healthy, you could still get diabetes. We do know that there is a large component. So it's not necessarily a fair statement of Sadiq's.
I hope, Mr. Muhammad, you heard that. Dr. Fiorito said that's not a fair statement, sir.
Yeah.
It's catchy, but it's not fair.
It is. He's not super far off for many people. So, a lot of people, for example, my dad has diabetes, and I had the same conversation with myself. Am I going to get diabetes? But at the same time, my dad is very heavy and very sedentary. So, he does not walk. He doesn't really do anything at all. And he eats a lot of sugary foods. So it is kind of like, it's not all genetics, but there is a genetic component. So I know that even if I'm healthy eating, I still have to go to my doctor and get my labs to check that I don't have diabetes.
Wonderful. Yeah. Well, thank you for that. I tell you, this is such an important issue. We've done a number of shows on this, but as we know, our nation really leads the world in obesity. We have the real challenge of being a financially solvent nation, and so our problem is not that people are not eating enough. The problem is that people eating too much, and then obviously. And let me not put this completely on behavior, because in a capitalist system, right, we have this drive to create products that are cheap, high calorie, high sugar, high salt, tasty, that sort of thing. And those things matter heavily, right? Particularly in an environment where we're working. I just read, I was just reading some labor statistics about need for just the pressures of work life here, and the inflation, the rise of costs in all kinds of areas, but our wages not rising in the same way. And so we've got all this pressure to work, and then so we don't have the time to stay home and cook, and so we eat these foods that are bad for us, and the people that make them know they're bad for us, and they put things in them that are really bad for us. And so it is not just on us, although it is on us. But we do have to understand that we're in an environment that really presses this in a really, really bad way. So I think this is really important that we have these discussions and that we are able to empower one another. So if we're going to wrap up in a second here, but yes, I want to narrow this down to a couple tips. So why don't you go ahead, Professor Hempfield, you can say something, then we're going to close out in just a few moments.
Okay. I also want to say, because I'm big into this as well, historians also will hopefully they're promoting this as well. We want to look at why Black folks sometimes will eat all of the fatty foods and etc. And it's traced back to slavery, right? And we had the leftovers, and we had to eat out of barrels often, right? So I think a lot of that's just transcended over decades and from slavery. I do believe so. Sometimes I don't want to be so hard on how Black folks eat, even though I'm a healthy eater more than not. I do know is historical, and it's from slavery. So I want to. So that's not really a tip, but that's just to say, um, I think let's understand and then make changes accordingly. It was about survival, right?
Yeah.
And even now, I do believe a lot of our violence that's happening with young folks, a lot of them sometimes they're just hungry. They're hungry. They want to put something on their stomachs. It just pains me often to see kids after school just eating chips. This is probably all they could afford, right? And so sometimes, and I don't want people coming at me like, I'm not grouping all Black folks together, but often, I mean, I see kids eating just chips because I don't think it's just because it tastes good. I think it's something to put on their stomachs too. And so if we in the summertime, if you have extra money, if you see kids in your neighborhood, maybe give them some healthy snacks, right? Buy some apples and pass it out when the kids are playing basketball and stuff, right? So those would be I guess, my tips this summer. Whatever people with some means, whatever you can do, maybe just try to help our kids eat healthier and just have some good snacks and just to eat. Make sure folks are eating. I volunteer at the Chicago Food Bank, the depository. I make it a point to give my time there. I've taken students from Kennedy King there. Right now, I'm about to volunteer again. Like, I give my time to help with food insecurity.
Wonderful. So we got another comment here. There are many disparities that were magnified during the pandemic. What would you all say to people that have financial insecurities and may not be able to shop or eat healthy? I think we kind of answered that a little bit earlier. Dr. Fiorina, I don't know if you want to add anything to that, but I know we've kind of talked about that a little bit, but you can add if you want to.
Yeah, we did touch on it. I think the other things to think about is just shopping for what's on sale in terms of vegetables. So, and I think people really underutilize their freezer because they're not sure which vegetables can be frozen. But I've really found, we were talking about as grad students, that's what I relied on as a grad student was anytime something was on sale, just buy a lot of it and then chop it up, prepare it however I want it to be prepared, and then freeze it. And that can last you an extremely long time. And that was really money saving for me.
Yeah, fantastic. So, all right, folks, let's close this out. Final tips, final words. What do we say to the people? I think we've given them a lot of information here, and I think we've given them a lot of direction, but let's give a little inspiration at the end here. What would you say to close out? Either one of you can hop in on this, but what would be your final thoughts?
I would say just figure out what makes you feel good. Try to add one vegetable to your day that you weren't going to eat beforehand. Try to add one 10-minute walk. See how it makes you feel, and then go from there, because it's really about the small changes that you can make.
Wonderful.
I would just say, let's go a little deeper with sometimes when we're eating, are we numbing pain? Are we, even with drinking, like, let's really be clear about why we're drinking, why we might overeat. Maybe just spend some time examining the whys. And as the doctor said, just try to implement small changes. If it's just meatless Mondays, and veggies, you don't have to go to Whole Foods to get veggies. Just don't overcook veggies as well sometimes. Just try something different. Again, as I started earlier with the saying, we can have all the education in the world, but our health, we get one life, our health really matters.
Gotcha. I love that. Meatless Mondays, folks. My daughter, my oldest daughter, loves Taco Tuesday. We do Taco Tuesday in our house. But as long as you don't do fried chicken Friday, you know what I mean? So, make sure we don't do that. But I like the Meatless Monday things. Maybe fresh foods Friday. How about that, right?
Yeah.
So fried chicken Friday. I'm trying to pause. No, that's not what we're talking about. Okay.
Do
all right. So anyway,
stir fry. Add some stir fry.
Tacos can be healthy depending on how you cook them, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. So, well, anyway, thank you all so much. I really, really appreciate this discussion, and you guys have been wonderful, wonderful guests. I thank you guys all for watching the Far South Chicago Coalition's Friday Health Talk. And I'm going to turn over to Dr. Roberson, who's going to close us out here. But let's give a warm Zoom round of applause. This is not Zoom, sorry. A warm broadcast, Facebook, YouTube. We're on Facebook, YouTube. We're on a couple other platforms as well. A round of applause to our wonderful, wonderful guest, Dr. Fiorina, who is at the University of Chicago in the emergency department, and Professor Hempfield, who is in the City College of Chicago. They've given us wonderful, wonderful information. Now it is time for us to go and use it. Thank you all for watching. Dr. Roberson, it is all yours.
Okay. Thank you so much, Ted. And I also want to add that Dr. Fiorani is also a community champion at the University of Chicago. And those are all second year med students who really want to give back to the community. Well, that concludes our Friday Health Talk of the Week. And wow, what an excellent, informative show. Because what we eat and put into our bodies does matter. So remember to eat in variety and moderation. I want to give a special thanks to our wonderful guests, and we will definitely have to have you guys back. And listeners, thank you for joining us. Remember that we want to hear from you. We want to invite all of our guests to contact the Far South Chicago Coalition. If you've been influenced by our show, if you have any comments, please like us, call us, visit our Facebook page, and even comment about this Facebook Live and request any show topics that you would like to learn more about. This show is sponsored by the Health and Mental Wellness Committee of the Far South Chicago Coalition, which is spearheaded by our president, Dr. Joyce Chapman. This show was directed and the content produced by myself, Dr. Tanya Roberson, and a job well done by our moderator, Mr. Ted Williams III. We look forward to seeing you all next Friday and have a great Memorial Day weekend. Take care.